Good evening and welcome to the Grand Prairie City Council meeting for Monday, January 23rd, 2017. I'd like to welcome everyone and ask you to rise and join us in singing O Canada. Thank you to the National Film Board for the images of our country and to our very own Grand Prairie Boys Choir for the audio. I would look for a motion for the adoption of the previous council meeting minutes. Councillor Rice.
I move adoption of the minutes of the council meeting of January 9th, 2017.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Rice. Did anyone note any errors or omissions in that set of minutes before we adopt them? Anything we need to change or correct? Seeing nothing, then I will call for a vote to adopt the minutes. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. I'd look for a motion for the adoption of the agenda, and I believe we had one additional agenda item. Councillor Radburn.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I would move that we adopt the agenda as amended with the addition of 9.5. Appointment of CAO.
Great. Thanks very much, Councillor Radburn. Any discussion or debate on the agenda as recommended? Okay, seeing none, then I will call for the vote on adopting the agenda. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. And that brings us to the delegation portion of our agenda. This is an opportunity that we have at every regular City Council meeting. Every 2 weeks, an opportunity for anybody to come forward and address council on any community-related matter, as long as it isn't something that's the subject of a public hearing. There's a specific time for that during public hearings. I note that there's a number of people in the room tonight, and I understand that some of them are from Grand Prairie Regional College. Certainly welcome you here and happy to see you all. We had one delegation let us know ahead of time that they'd be here, and so we'll start there first. Mr. Baron Mans with Aquaterra Utilities. Baron. Welcome.
Thank you, and good evening. I'm pleased, I'd like to introduce as well Jeff Johnston, our COO, who we all know. Pleased this evening to highlight for you our 2017-18 business plan, and looking forward to continuing to partner with the city in making sure that your utility needs are met, as well as the growth needs that you have. We've committed to continuing to make investments for those purposes. Some of the major projects are continued involvement in the downtown enhancement and the replacement of really the oldest water and sewer infrastructure that we have as that project continues. The installation of a second transmission line, a second water feed into the system that would go up Highway 40, improving water supply to the west end of the city, as well as improved overall reliability. And as well, the largest single project that would be a benefit to the entire regional system is the improvement of facilities down at the river that has three components. The first being the protection of the riverbank itself. Secondly, increase in raw water storage there from about 2 to 4 days that we currently have to ideally 2 weeks. Based on the experience that communities like North Battleford and Prince Albert had last year with an environmental incident upstream, really highlighted the importance of adequate off-stream storage. And thirdly, the construction of a new water intake that would meet current standards for fish protection, as well as provide capacity for a growing region. Those three components we estimate to cost $20 million and believe would ideally be suited for the next round of Build Canada funding and the provincial federal partnership that provides. And have appreciated the city's support of those kinds of applications in the past. I wanted to highlight recently with the passage of the MGA late last year that there were some last-minute amendments that were favorable and appreciate the advocacy that the city and AUMA have provided over a number of years that now provides freedom for us to operate both outside of Alberta and to be able to make acquisitions or to grow the company without requiring ministerial approval as previously existed. With respect to the resources that we'll need for that, we've identified utility rate increases of 2.3 and 2.4% for water and wastewater respectively. With respect to the solid waste charges that we have for garbage collection and recycling for residents, we are proposing a 2% drop for this year and no increase next year as a result of seeing increased volumes coming to our landfill recently. We'll continue to work with the city and with haulers to see more and more city waste being disposed of at our landfill as a major revenue generator for the solid waste utility overall. So really that's a high-level overview of our plans and be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Great. Thanks very much, Mr. Mans. Any questions for the delegation? Councillor Rice.
Mr. Vance, are you seeing the markets strengthening for recycled goods? And do you monitor those markets fairly?
Our rates or our revenues aren't impacted by those swings in the markets. That's a risk that the hauler and processor currently take. And so we're not sensitive to those rates as we were at one time.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mayor Given. Just two quick questions, Mr. Mans. The solid waste with this 2% drop that you're saying, which is nice, it's better than going 2% up. Where's that going to put us in relation? Because right now we're the highest, because like when I water my lawn in the summer, I know I get dinged quite a bit on the solid waste because it kind of goes about the water usage you use. So where's that going to put us in place after the 2%?
So we're committed to having our utility rates below the median in comparison to other Alberta cities. And we look at our water and wastewater rates, we're slightly below the median there. Our solid waste rates, so garbage collection, recycling, are second only to Edmonton's. And so we really want to look at ways in which we can continue to see a reduction in those charges. And the largest advantage there is to see more tonnage coming to our landfill and look to attract as much city waste as possible there.
Okay, and finish up. So we'll still be high even with this, but the trend is to try to reduce it.
I hope that we're turning a corner and we'll continue to see further reductions going forward.
Okay. My final question, Styrofoam. How are we doing? I don't know, maybe it's been said, how many buses or how's that program with the Aquaterra doing?
Last year we sent out 30,000 pounds of condensed styrofoam, and we expect to be on track. We've seen it grow over the years, so we'll be, it'll be that 30,000, plus or minus 10%. I would expect it to keep on growing as we develop our programs and get our media blitzes out. So, but it's been very successful.
Councillor Thiessen.
Very much, Mayor Given. Thanks for coming in today, gentlemen. I have two questions as well. The first is in regards to the solid waste franchise recovery fee. I know that we're talking about a decrease in our curbside collection and recycling programs, but there's also an increase of almost a quarter this year, and then almost a quarter, and then a full quarter in January of 2018. Can you explain to the viewing audience and the members of the public here and council, I guess, the justification for raising those rates? It sort of got lost in our discussion at the committee, but I was curious as to why we're raising, because it pretty much eliminates any kind of savings that we got this year.
So the solid waste franchise fee is a 10% charge on gross revenue for landfill tipping revenues, and that's paid directly to the city, and that is revenue neutral through the tipping, through the franchise fee solid waste charge that's applied on residential bills. So it's a recovery of that 10% revenue at the landfill. So as landfill tonnages increase, revenues at the landfill increase, so does the franchise revenues, and that's recovered then through this charge on the utility bill.
Okay. Thank you for the answer. And yeah, just one more question. In regards to all the tables that were put forward in the Aquaterra business plan, I noticed that there's lots of 2016, 2017, 2018. I hate to get into quotes, but there's a famous quote that says, "Those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it." With the introduction of a potentially whole brand new council next year and then moving forward, I think it'd maybe be helpful for future councils if we got to see the increases in the 2 years prior to the year that we're in now, and then the 2 years increases as well, just so that we can see where we're at and so the public can see where we're at for the full case of transparency. Would Aquaterra Utilities be willing to, I guess, humor me and come forward with in their future tables with giving us the past increases to water rates and alongside the future increases? Because it's really hard to judge from here now. Okay, yeah, that doesn't look like a lot, but if $3 over 2 years this time doesn't look like a lot, but if we raised it $6 over the previous 2 years, then that might look a lot different to the public and to the council that's approving it.
Sure.
Awesome, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Thiessen. Councillor Rice?
Clarify, just following up on Councillor McLean's discussion on styrofoam. Are we not one of the few municipalities that has a densifier, and that allows us to get rid of, like you said, 30,000 pounds of styrofoam is a lot of styrofoam, and it condenses down to about the size of a brick, doesn't it?
It's you have the culling. They're about 3 feet long, 2 inches thick, but yes, 4 inches wide. Really, the savings, we do market, we do sell it overseas, but really the savings is in the landfill because it's 98% air. It doesn't compact, so that's really in that airspace, and extending the life of the landfill is really where Aquaterra benefits from that, as well as, again, from an environmental perspective.
And Councillor Rice is correct that we're one of the few that have a thermal condenser and that can actively recycle styrofoam that way.
Thank you.
Councillor McLean?
Thank you, Mayor Given. Just a quick question. I used to hear before stats on styrofoam cups used to take up 6-7% of landfills. How was that percentage here? Not now, but before. Did you find that before? Or was that true statistics? Or?
Honestly, I don't have any data on that to speak.
It's quite high.
I would likely, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor McLean. Mr. Mans, can you just speak? So Aquaterra runs 3 relatively distinct service areas: the City of Grand Prairie, the County of Grand Prairie, and the Town of Sexsmith. Can you speak to how the rate increases that you mentioned and are proposing here tonight for the city, how do those compare to the ones in the Aquaterra's other service areas, the County of Grand Prairie and the Town of Sexsmith?
Sure. In terms of water rates, the water rates are uniform throughout our service area, so they're the same regardless of the community served. The sewer systems are separately accounted for, and so the Town of Sexsmith will see about a 10% increase next year. The Claremont customers will see a 19% increase, or about $8.50 a month increase. The plan is to connect the Claremont system with Grand Prairie so that wastewater from Claremont will be treated at our plant. And so in doing that, those systems will be interconnected, and Claremont customers will, residential customers will be paying about $1 more than city residences after this particular increase. So the increases are different depending on the needs in those systems to be able to be self-funding.
So the greater rates of increase in the other systems, particularly the Claremont one serving Claremont, does that speak to the extent of capital upgrades that are required to support the growth in those areas?
Yes, that's right. That's one of them. And also then in being interconnected, there's also the contribution towards the costs of the treatment plant that'll come into play as well.
If I may add, it's population-based, so smaller populations will absorb higher rates.
Sure.
For capital investments.
Sure. So the idea that a $100,000 spread across 4,000 people is significantly different per person than $100,000 spread across 60,000 people.
Absolutely.
Okay. Sure. Thanks very much. Councillor Clayton?
Mayor Given, since you seem to be getting the full gamut of questions, I got a couple for you. Can you tell me any change in status quo for glass coming up in the near future? And also any discussion on bins for recyclable as opposed to blue bags?
At this point, we haven't had any breakthroughs with glass. Several reasons, and we've talked about it before, but I'll reiterate them. We only generate about 250 tons a year, or we were, as a city, and with a high contamination rate. And contamination may be garbage, it may be labels, caps, but also colored and clear are different markets. Again, we do, because of our geographical location, trucking the glass to a market is very cost prohibitive, and that's really one of the biggest drivers at this point. As we recently went out to RFP for curbside. One of the challenges we've had, I guess, is finding out what the residents want. We have done surveys. The decision to keep with blue bags as opposed to bins largely goes to our experience with the garbage carts, and especially in subdivisions, streets like Kateri, where there's on-street parking and very tight turnarounds for whether it's fire trucks or plows or our garbage trucks, and just the challenge that we faced when we implemented that program. It just that itself is in our mind is a reason not to go to carts. There's a significant capital investment that would be borne by the residents, with really reduction in service because we have unlimited blue bag recycling, and this would limit you to one cart. And as well as the blue bags allows the contractors to see contamination, where the carts would not. It would be dumped by an automatic truck, and it really, whatever's in there is hidden. So
Thank you.
those are the drivers.
Thanks, Councillor Clayton. Gentlemen, I don't see anybody else in the queue. So thank you very much for being here tonight to answer some questions in advance of Council considering those changes to the rates. And much appreciate seeing you here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
So this is still the delegation portion of our agenda. Again, if there's anybody else that wish to come forward and address Council on any community-related matter, as long as it isn't the subject of a public hearing. Was there anybody else that wished to address Council? Sure, please come forward. If you haven't let us know who you were ahead of time, then we just ask that you'd state your name so Council knows who's addressing us. You've got about 5 minutes typically, and welcome. And just make sure the microphone's pointing sort of towards your mouth, and other than that, it's pretty sensitive.
I'm Lois Taylor. I'm a driver for FedEx. With the what's happening downtown, I'm wondering if you have considered a loading zone at least on each block for us to load off on those that don't have back streets or back doors, or the businesses on back doors. I think just about any city does have something where you can pull in. The reason that brought me here today is I was going down 100th, and the left-hand traffic was being routed over to the right. So rather than stop in the middle of the street, I did pull into a parking spot, and the police peace officer gave me a hefty ticket today because I ran in to try and deliver a parcel. And I do think that even down the back alleys, I have people trying to get by my van and hitting me and causing a lot of stress on, you know, because if our vehicles get banged up, you know, the people pull them off the road and won't let us drive them, that sort of stuff. And I think a 15-minute loading zone on each block would definitely be a help for people. You, for years, I've heard you wanting us to bring downtown business here, and people move away. And, you know, Bradbourds are one of them that have moved away from the downtown core, and we are trying to provide a service to you by delivering packages. And I think that a consideration with the money that is being spent downtown, that a 15-minute loading zone would be something that you guys could look at.
Okay.
Because I'm extremely upset about the ticket I got today.
Okay, thanks very much for raising the issue. Absolutely. And there may be some questions for you from council. We certainly like to make sure that there's an opportunity in case anybody wants to clarify anything. But thanks for raising the issue. At this stage, I don't believe that there was any part of the physical design that contemplated a specialized loading zone. Having said that, that's the kind of thing that could be done by designating a specific area at the curb. That would be something obviously we would want to consult with downtown business owners and see whether they saw it as a
exactly, downtown. Like, I mean, at least there should be a consideration for the fact that I'd already been around the block once. Traffic was already backed up because of the area, and I tried to explain that to her, and she just hands out a ticket, like $250 ticket. Like, I'm really upset.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. Well, there are some questions for you. The Councillor O'Toole is in the queue. Councillor O'Toole.
Thank you very much, and thank you for coming here. If something like this was to be developed, we're not saying it is or isn't, but would there be a time that you would like? Would it be like a morning time or general all day, or how often do you go downtown to deliver parcels? Is it usually in the morning, afternoon?
For myself, I'm there between 10 and noon. If it's a really busy day, I might be there a little bit longer, but I don't start before 10 because the businesses don't open before 10.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Councillor Rice.
Point of interest, what was the ticket for $250?
I pulled into handicap parking.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, so, and that's a point that I guess I will be staying out on the middle of the street with my flashers on in the future, because that's my option.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Rice. Okay, I don't see anybody else in the queue. Thanks very much, Ms. Taylor, for being here this evening and raising the issue. Certainly appreciate it. Okay. Was there anybody else that wished to come forward to address council on any community-related matter? I don't see anybody running. This will be your last opportunity. Anybody else want to come and address council? We're not that scary. Okay, it doesn't look like anybody else is going to come forward. So we'll close the delegation portion of our agenda. We'll move on to public hearings. We have one under item 6.1, a land use bylaw amendment, C1237J, an amendment to the municipal development plan. I would call this public hearing to order, and we'll look to administration for an introduction. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor Given. As you noted, I'm here to present a bylaw which would amend the municipal development plan. The bylaw is C1237J. And this is a result of a number of meetings that we've had at the Council Committee of the Whole level with administration and our customers and partners, the Urban Development Institute, which I'll refer to as UDI for the rest of the presentation. So I'll just walk through the presentation here, the nature of the amendments. The primary focus of the amendment is MDP Policy 5.2, which is shown on the screen. And this is the existing policy, and the main point of the policy here is it says the design of residential neighborhoods will be encouraged to include an appropriate mix of housing with a minimum of 25% medium and or high density residential units as a means of meeting the life cycle and diverse social and economic needs of a community. The purpose of the policy when the MDP was adopted is it all focuses around a number of smart growth goals listed on the screen. I won't read through them item by item, but in general, it's a good thing for a city to have a diverse housing stock. UDI has listed a number of concerns with the policy as it applies to development of new neighborhoods, and those primarily focus around supply and demand, and they believe that the 25% provided far exceeds the demand for development of these sites, and so as a result, they're forced to carry these sites for a long period of time. And there's costs associated with carrying the sites, and by the time the sites are ultimately sold, they've suffered a loss. I noticed that Mr. Scott Pravitz is here this evening, so I'll leave him to speak to UDI's concerns specifically if council has any questions. In response to their proposal to delete the policy, UDI presented a proposal to the city which is amending the policy 5.2, which would delete the 25% requirement, allow for appropriate reclassification of existing sites shown in planning documents, sorry, not existing sites, but sites that are shown in existing planning documents that are currently unsubdivided and unserviced to alternative land uses, likely lower density residential. And in instances where that condition applies, the developer compensate the city at the rate of $5,000 a hectare. This slide was from the August 25th Council Committee of the Whole meeting. Two motions came out of it. One was to amend Policy 5.2 of the Municipal Development Plan, and number two was to draft a policy to capture UDI's proposal of the compensation. Dealing with item number one, the existing 5.2 policy can be tweaked very slightly, just simply to remove the reference to 25% multifamily. And just as a minor housekeeping item, deleting the final sentence as well, because it's more of a general statement, so we don't need that further clarification in the last sentence. We felt that it was also necessary to create a new policy which would require that the city keep an eye on how many multifamily sites there are in the city. So rather than trying to strive for 25% in new areas, Council Committee of the Whole agreed that a 25% overall housing or multifamily mix in the housing stock would be desirable. So a little bit more of a generic statement in this section 6. The reason we took it out of 5.2 is 5.2 is specific to new neighborhoods. 6 was primarily all about smart growth. And number 2 of the motions is to bring back the draft policies. Those policies were that policy was presented at the October 27th Council Committee of the Whole meeting. And that is policy 617, and it's attached to the agenda. And with that, I'm open to questions and comments.
Thanks very much, Mr. Johnson. Any questions for administration? Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you very much, Mayor Given. Thanks for the presentation, Joe. Just a quick question on the number of inventory that we have currently in the city of Grand Prairie. I know there was lots of discussion, preliminary and ongoing, as we're going through this process. But are we hitting that 25% citywide currently, or do we still need to look at the inventory?
Mr. Johnson.
Through Mayor Given. That is a bit of a difficult question because it depends on how you define provision of multifamily. So for all intents and purposes, I think the most appropriate way would be to include the vacant undeveloped sites, assign an average density to those sites, and then that gives you a picture of how much we're providing versus how much is actually there. In creation of the MDP, there was an analysis of the city done, and at that time, the existing housing stock showed that there was approximately 25% multifamily units. But at this point in time, like I said, there are a number of vacant sites out there. So if you assign a value to that, we might be greater than the 25% currently.
Okay, and just one more question. As far as those vacant sites that you were talking about before, how much tax does a landowner have to pay on it comparatively to a developed versus undeveloped site? Is it a big difference or is it minimal?
Through the mayor, I'm unaware of the answer on that, but I suspect our acting corporate services director may be able to answer that one.
Scott, would you have any answer on that? If you just make sure the microphone points towards your mouth there.
Sure. Through the mayor, it depends on the size of development, of course, the amount of tax dollars that we are going to get from a certain project. Of course, and it depends on the size of the parcel as well. A large parcel is going to generate a large amount of tax dollars. However, generally you're going to see a large development on that parcel, which would drive a lot more.
So, sorry, just for clarity's sake, so if it's undeveloped, does it have a base tax rate that we charge the landowner versus a developed full multifamily dwelling site? Would they pay more tax?
All residential properties in the city pay essentially the same tax rate.
Developed or undeveloped?
Developed or undeveloped.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Thiessen. Councillor Tarrant?
Thank you, Mayor Given. Joe, just a two-part question. Could you speak to how the planning department is going to monitor the 25% requirement, and if we did move below that, what actions would the planning department take to bring us to that amount?
Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor Given. So as far as monitoring the overall housing mix, I think for all intents and purposes, we would be using this as a general guideline to begin with. And when we look out and we see numerous vacant multifamily parcels around the city, we might find it to be in a difficult position to insist that there be more multifamily. So we wouldn't use it as a hard and fast rule in forming any recommendations to council. However, we would come up with some method to keep an eye on it. And notwithstanding this direction that's provided in the MDP, if new outline plans come forward and there's a development concept that it makes sense that there should be multifamily, be it they're close to a major commercial area, major public institution, be it recreation, education, the hospital or something like that, we would strongly suggest that there be multifamily anyhow. But as far as a strict formula to calculate the existing housing stock at this point, we're not there yet.
Councillor Rice.
I'm kind of confused through the chair to Mr. Johnson. Up there on the screen, we saw those yellow stroked out parts that we were amending the bylaw to reflect those. But if I go to bylaw C1237J 1B, it seems to still be in there. The 25% is still referenced in there.
Just one moment here.
Is this the section you're talking about, Mr. Rice?
It is.
Mr. Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor Given. Item number A is to delete the section specific to new outline plans requiring 25%. B, 1B is the more generic citywide statement.
So the A removes the 25% requirement from a previous section, and B adds a new section, 6.19, which brings back the 25, but on a citywide basis rather than a new development basis. Does that clarify it for you, Councillor Rice?
It is. I find it confusing. It's kind of convoluted, but that would be just my opinion.
Mr. Johnson, do you just want to clarify how the 25% was used previously, just to highlight how it was applied to new development in the previous statement?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor Given. Previously, it was implemented at the outline plan level, which is typically at a quarter section. So when we were getting new outline plans, we would say that there needs to be 25% in that quarter section, whereas the more, the 1B is a city-wide statement. So if we look and we see that the city has at least that 25% multifamily and a new application comes in for an outline plan and there's no multifamily, then we would be okay with it under these amendments.
Okay.
Thanks, Mr. Johnson. Thanks, Councillor Rice. Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mayor Given. Joe, a couple questions. First, speaking to the vacant lots, I can see why developers are frustrated, and I can see why maybe some individual homeowners are frustrated how the separation between multifamily units has been and done. It almost seems like some of the former plans where we need this spot, we'll put it here, but rationale, it never really worked. So are we looking into that as well? Because I don't know how this is all going to prevail in 5 to 15 years and how it's going to look. This is something totally new. Developers are asking for, but we know some of these vacant areas have not worked. Developers know this, and the citizens are knowing this. So are we going to learn from this?
Mr. Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor Given. Well, first and foremost, the sites that are vacant and dedicated for multifamily will most likely remain as such, given the nature of the policy as well as the development realities for those sites. The servicing's there, and they're zoned, and if someone comes in with a development permit, we're obligated, that meets all requirements in the land use bylaw, we're obligated to issue a development permit. Certainly, we can look around the city and see some examples that are great for how multifamily can be integrated into an area, and some examples where there's some lessons learned. Planning staff are aware of those, and so is the development community, and we work with our partners to come up with a plan area that works for everyone. So,
Thanks, Councillor McLean. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Given. Yeah, because I'm looking forward, and I know we're going to do a broad prospect of the city, but the new outline plans where we might have separations of, you know, if you're in a single dwelling house that's 400,000 and 20 feet in behind your back fence, there's a 4-story building looking down on you. So I really hope if we're missing something in our bylaws, if we're having some separation and how it's all going to work together and gel, I hope that maybe planning and within the city and developers can bring this forward. So that's where I'm reaching at, because I don't know how this is going to look like in 5 or 10 years. There's a reason why the developer asked for it, and there's a reason why we're doing changes for it. So that's where I'm going to. There was one more here if I could find it. But, and the other one is when we're doing the new outline plans, we say buyer beware. But then when you buy a lot, $250,000, that was your fault not knowing that this area right behind your lot could be 4 or 5 stories. So I'm just wondering if there's a policy or process that the council could look at as well to say that in the new outline plans that now maybe we have to bring this in at a committee. I'm not saying here now, but that, you know, buyer beware, and it can all gel together, but for everybody to know up front what's going in that new outline plan. Because a lot of people that do buy don't know. The realtors aren't telling them, and then they buy, and then, oh, geez, I didn't know that. But there's a missing link is where I'm getting at, Joe. And I don't know if that's the city's responsibility, which I think it would be, but something's missing there.
So, Councillor McLean, just to clarify, you're saying that you're questioning whether or not the city has the opportunity to impact purchaser notification about what else has been approved.
If there's a different formula that we may look at in the future.
That's absolutely something that we could refer to an appropriate standing committee if you want to do that, and any council member can do that by just sending an email to the appropriate one. Okay. Councillor Thiessen?
Thank you very much, Mayor Given. Joe, just one more question. All goes well. We pass this policy, we move it forward. Moving forward, is administration or the planning department developing a method to track multifamily inventory on developed sites so that we are, as Councillor Tarrant was alluding to, so we have a fully tracked one, and then we're just adding on to it, and we can say, well, we have 32%, so we don't really need to push out into the residential neighborhoods. Is administration working on developing that tool?
Mr. Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor Given. Currently, we haven't landed on anything. We've had a number of discussions about how complicated it really is, actually, and what the meaningful. So, given that the direction at this point is to aim to be at 25%, we want to look at all the different ways that you can calculate that. And if we can all agree that right now is a reasonable mix, and I would suggest that the fact that there are numerous vacant sites ready for development, that we are at least at a reasonable point in terms of supply and demand, if not oversupplied. So if we came up with a formula that put us somewhere around the 25%, we'd say that January 2017 is kind of our benchmark, and we're going to monitor it off of that. But if we define how we're going to calculate it, and then we run the calculations and we wind up at 50 or 10, then we're off the mark. So we need to figure out what the most sensible way of approaching the calculation. It might not be as easy as just counting existing units, is what I'm saying. So we will do that. We have had the discussions, but we just haven't landed on anything. So.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Johnson. I don't see anybody else in the queue from council, and so I will open the presentation submission portion of the public hearing. This is an opportunity for anybody to come forward from the public and speak to the content of the public hearing. Is there anyone who wished to speak in favor or in support of the proposed amendments? Is there anyone who wished to come forward to speak in favor or support of the proposed amendments? I'll ask one last time. Is there anyone who wished to speak in favor or in support of the proposed amendments? Okay, not seeing anybody come forward, then I'll ask if there's anyone who wished to speak in opposition or against the proposed amendments. Is there anyone who wished to speak against the proposed amendments? I'll ask the last time if there's anyone who wished to come forward to speak against or opposed to the proposed amendments. Seeing no one coming forward, and if there are no questions or any other presentations from the public, and I don't see anybody moving, I will close the presentation submission portion and close the public hearing. We'll move on to business arising, and I would look for a motion for first reading. Councillor Clayton.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I move that council give first reading to bylaw C-1237J, being an amendment to the municipal development plan.
Right. Thanks very much, Councillor Clayton. So a motion on first reading is basically to get it up for discussion and debate, and there is actually no discussion or debate on first reading. So I will call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Clayton.
I would move the council give second reading to bylaw C-1237J.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Clayton. So at second reading is where we can engage in discussion and debate. Councillor Tarrant.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I'll be speaking against the motion, and I would encourage other council members to vote against it as well. My rationale for voting against is there's several reasons. First off is the need for such a policy. I don't believe that there is a shortage of multifamily sites, or has there ever been a chronic shortage of sites available for multifamily. And so we've heard throughout this whole process some of the negatives of having a very hard and fast number. The second reason is that the 25% to me is it's a very arbitrary number. I haven't seen any analysis looking at what is a good mix and what is a good ratio. And that's over and above thinking about how do we actually find the number. We don't have an actually appropriate mechanism for calculating this yet. And so because of that, and because of, it's an arbitrary number, I don't see that. For me, I do believe that we should be encouraging multifamily. I'm more concerned about the location of it and making sure that we have multifamily located next to educational centers and connectors and certain places. And I think that there's room in the MDP for having, a statement regarding that and making sure that we're not giving up some key locations that should be multifamily to single family. And I think that's important. But to have an arbitrary number, I just don't see the value in it. And I think it could cause more harm than good.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Tarrant. Any other discussion or debate? I don't see anybody else in the queue, so I'll take an opportunity at Council's pleasure. I would encourage Council to support the proposed amendments. This has been a significant collaboration between the development community and Council since all of Council met with the UDI a number of years ago and raised this issue. Certainly have appreciated working with the development community on this. And I'd just remind Council that in our guiding principles and strategic direction that we set at the start of this term, we have a specific item focused on exploring new directions and working to develop residential infill strategies. I think that this is exactly in line with that. One of the challenges that we have with the current system, which if we don't pass these changes tonight would continue to be the system, is that every single new development, every new neighborhood that's planned must have a minimum of 25% multifamily. That means that we are getting far more of these sites across the city than we need, and arguably even worse than that, because I believe we need to have spaces for multifamily. Basically, the question here is where do we put apartments? We need to have places that apartments can go in order to have that balance of housing. But the current system means that every new development out on the edge of the city gets a piece of land tied up that may someday in the future have an apartment. I would argue that is inefficient and inappropriate because I think one of the trade-offs of multifamily dwellings should be that they're close to activity generators or other amenities, kind of like Councillor Tarrant said. But the provision of all these excess sites means that it's too easy to build an apartment way out in the middle of nowhere on the edge of the city. I believe the proposal here will provide, over time, will direct more of that development downtown and into the core of our city. And we have, in the report, heard from administration and from UDI that where there are significant activity generators like the college or the hospital or Eastlink Center for that matter, there will be an attraction to multifamily development. And I would argue that that is only if there aren't various cheap sites that we've flooded the market with because our artificial requirement for every new development to have them, which exists today, and which would continue to be the law of the land if we don't pass the changes today. So I would encourage council members to support the proposed amendments. Councillor Tarrant.
I would agree with Mayor Given that the current policy has had a number of negative effects, and one of the key ones being that it's forced a lot of the multifamilies to the edges of the city, which maybe not be in our council's strategic priorities. But I think that should this motion be defeated, I would still push for a changing of the MDP to take out the current policy and replace it with something else. I just don't think that there's a need for the 25%. I think that it could become very convoluted for developers, and I think right now, because we don't have a system in place to monitor it, there's not going to be, I think, any consequences. But if a system is developed, it could cause headaches for developers down the road. So say we hit the 25%, we go underneath that. How does development pick and choose which developers have to have multifamily to increase that 25%? You're picking winners and losers, or you're trying to direct the market and direct where multifamily would go. And I think that you need to have more of a general policy, like I said, that would focus it more on specific areas like connector roads and beside recreational facilities.
Thanks, Councillor Tarrant. Councillor Thiessen.
I'm just going to put my 2 cents in. I'm not going to put too much of any sense into it, but I'm in agreement with Councillor Tarrant that I too will not be supporting this motion. I think it means well, and I think it means to do well, but I think it also, as presented, is really putting the cart before the horse. I think we need to have a fully fleshed out policy. We need to analyze the data that we have. We need to look at the inventory and the stock that we have, and before we jump to any quick decisions, I don't want to do that until I know all ends of how this is going to affect future development in the city. So for many of the reasons that Councillor Tarrant has already stated, I'm not going to restate them, but I will be in support of defeating this motion.
Thanks, Councillor Thiessen. Councillor Clayton.
Thank you, Mayor Given. Unless something has changed since we had a discussion at Committee of the Whole, we had industry at the table. Industry spoke in regards to the past policy. Industry indicated that they were comfortable with this and explained that this was what they desired. So I'm not quite sure why Councillor Tarrant or Councillor Thiessen, if they had these concerns, we didn't discuss these earlier.
Thanks, Councillor Clayton. Councillor Tarrant.
That if you can see in the report, I think UDI, there was a representative here, is still opposed to these policies. That they were wanting just that whole policy removed altogether and not to have any requirements for a strict percentage on multifamilies. And in the report there, it indicates that they've given their reasons for why they wouldn't want this at all. And we did have significant conversation at prior committee meetings regarding this. And there was, I know personally, I objected to it at the time, and we had talked about a number of different solutions and different ways we could go about achieving this. So there was, I think, significant debate at committee regarding this, and there was opposition presented at that point, and UDI is still currently opposed to this change.
Thanks, Councillor Tarrant. Councillor Radburn.
Thank you, Mayor Given. Yes, we did. We had this exact debate at Council Committee of the Whole. The majority felt that we needed some kind of a number. It may not be workable, but it was something that admin felt that they could work with and monitor. At Council Committee of the Whole, I was actually not in support of this. I preferred to get rid of the 25 and not have it any place in the MDP. But I think this is it moves us in the right direction. And I think nothing is written in stone. I think if we find that admin are really struggling with monitoring and dealing with particular development requests, then I think we might need to change it further. But from my perspective, it looked like the will of this group was to move this part way, and I'm willing to support it because I think it's in the right direction, and I think that UDI and admin can make it work.
Thanks, Councillor Radburn. I see Councillor Rice in the queue, but just so I don't end up going last, Councillor Rice, I just wanted to address what the effect of this, what I view the effect of having this proposed change would be. It's not so, it removes the burden of providing multifamily from new land development and places some flexibility and gives the city some ability and some justification for any other city policies we might have to encourage or incent new multifamily development in other areas. So right now, the burden of providing multifamily sites falls 100% on new development. They're required to provide them. This provides administration, I think, arguably more flexibility when dealing with new development. They can assess and say, is there a good reason for having multifamily here rather than you must have it? And it also provides support and justification for any other programs or policies a future council might wish to pass to encourage multifamily development in other areas. So I think that that's an important part. And in terms of having a number in there, I think it's important we have to remember that at some level, the MDP and the land use bylaws and city bylaws are intended at some level to regulate industry. And I think if we had no number in there at all, it would make it very difficult for administration to have any leverage with industry. And from time to time, that is required for administration to make the case that says that no, council has said we do want to have multifamily of some measure in the city, and see it's right there in the MDP. If we say that no, there's not any kind of target or there's no number, my concern is that that would make it more challenging. The way that I read this, it is phrased as a shall encourage rather than a require. We certainly go through that discussion whenever we deal with the MDP about what is required and the meaning of a shall versus shall encourage. And I think that this strikes an appropriate balance. Councillor Rice.
So, just a clarification, UDI's only objection is that they don't want to see that number 25 in the bylaw. Is that correct?
Councillor Rice, I guess we missed the opportunity to be able to ask UDI. We didn't have a presentation from any of them. My understanding from the report was that UDI was in support of the language that was here, and certainly, and any other council member could correct my recollection, but I believe they spoke to it in support of it at the council committee of the whole meeting.
I kind of got that feeling too, but I thought I heard Mr. Johnson say they were not happy.
Mr. Johnson, what communication have you received from UDI on the proposed amendments?
Thank you, Mayor Given. I have not received any formal communication. All of our communication has been just verbal and over the phone and whatnot. My understanding is that the piece about the 25% being applied citywide isn't, they're not totally in support of it, but they understand that if that's what takes to get council on board with the proposed amendment, then they're generally okay with it. I don't think they had serious opposition to that piece. Now, part of that goes along with the discussions that we've had together about how we plan to approach that as a department, and I have mentioned numerous times that we won't be using a firm stick on this approach, and if we're looking out the window and we're seeing a lot of vacant, undeveloped multifamily sites, I would find it very hard to come to council with a recommendation for refusal on an outline plan based on there not being any multifamily, regardless if our calculations show it at 20, 15% citywide. If there's vacant, undeveloped sites, we're going to take that into consideration.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Johnson. Councillor Rice, is that clarify for you? Okay. I don't see anybody else in the queue. One last opportunity. We're still on second reading here, Council. So if there's nobody else in the queue, I'll call for the vote on second reading. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. We'll move on to motion to have third reading. Councillor Clayton.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I would move that council have third reading for bylaw C-1237J.
Thanks very much, Councillor Clayton. So a motion to have third reading is a motion that enables council to have all three required readings of the bylaw amendment here at the same council meeting. This motion isn't up for debate other than to the merits of whether or not we have third reading here tonight or whether it comes back. If this motion doesn't carry unanimously, then third and final reading would come back at a subsequent council meeting. Is there any discussion or debate as to the merits of having third and final reading here tonight? I don't see anybody in the queue, so I'll call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion does carry unanimously, so we can have third and final reading. Councillor Clayton.
I'd move the council give third reading to bylaw C-1237J.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Clayton. Any discussion or debate on third and final reading? Seeing none, please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. And I think there's one piece of business with respect to the policy, Councillor Clayton.
And that council approve the classification of multifamily sites policy being policy 617.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Clayton. And that's the reclassification of multifamily sites policy. Thank you. Any discussion or debate on that policy? This is the policy that shows how administration would if there was a approved site in a document that hadn't been subdivided or serviced, how a developer could approach the city and convert that from a multifamily site down to a lower density site. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. I think that handles all of our business for public hearings. And we'll move on into our unfinished business. We have item 7.1, policy 607, waiver of fees, levies, and securities, some proposed amendments. I believe this was previously intended to come at a past council meeting. Do we need an introduction from administration to cover the highlights? Mr. Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor Given. Yes, you are correct. This came through the Community Growth Committee. It's a long-standing policy that the city has had regarding a waiver of fees, levies, and securities for projects of a certain nature, primarily around global housing projects, city-related projects, affordable housing, etc. Some minor tweaks were proposed by committee after some recent presentations for waiver of fees. And we proposed that the policy be amended to coordinate requests so that there's one single request being presented to committee. And we also introduced the idea that managers of various departments have a certain authority to waive fees to a certain amount. And so those amendments are captured in the policy and were supported by committee and now being presented to council.
Thanks very much, Mr. Johnson. Can I have a motion for the approval of the amendments? Councillor Radburn.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I would move council approve policy 607, waiver of fees, levies, and securities as amended.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Radburn. Any discussion or debate on that amendment? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. We have no items under our report section, and that would take us to committee business, starting with 9.1, the Community Growth Committee meeting from January 10th. And I think Councillor Radburn, you were handling that one as a pinch hitter.
That's correct. The start of the committee meeting, there was Councillor Logan, myself, who aren't on the committee, and Mayor Given. So that's why I was pinch hitting. And Councillor Rice joined later, so to help us out. I would move council receive the minutes of the Community Growth Committee meeting held Tuesday, January 10th, 2017, as presented.
Thanks very much, Councillor Radburn. Are there any errors or omissions in that set of minutes that we need to correct before we adopt them? Seeing nobody ringing in, I'll call for the vote. Please vote. That motion carries. Councillor Radburn, I don't know if there's anything you want to highlight, or Councillor Rice made the note that she was there just 4 minutes late. But so I don't know, Councillor Rice, if you had anything that you want to highlight from the set of minutes. Let Councillor Radburn.
I will, thanks. So other highlights were we did have a informal discussion with respect to a proposed Mint Smartwash project that may be coming to the city. We also had an update on the where we're at with the Partners for Climate Protection FCM program. We're kind of at milestone 1.5 of 5, and Casey provided us with a good update as to what's happening with respect to that program and the further consultation that's to come. So we received that for information. And we also received for information the annual report from the Community Enhancement Advisory Committee. We did change terms of reference for that committee, and pleased to note that our Environmental Stewardship Department is quite pleased with the role and the contributions made by the Community Enhancement Advisory Committee, and some of those projects and opportunities for input were noted in the annual report. So that was received for information as well, Mayor Given. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Councillor Radburn. We'll move on to 9.2, the Community Living Committee from January 10th. And I think that was you, wasn't it, Councillor Tarrant?
Mayor Given, I would move the Living Committee minutes of January 10th.
Thanks very much, Councillor Tarrant. Any discussion or debate on that set of minutes? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Tarrant.
We have one motion coming out of committee. I would move that council award the various RFPs listed in the agenda to the organizations listed as well.
Councillor Tarrant, I was just discussing with our acting city manager here. I wonder, would you, I think it's probably more appropriate since they're individual RFPs, that we have three motions. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So maybe we'll just start with the first one first. And
Strike the last one then. I will move that council award RFP 33-431-16 to Centerpoint Facilitation in the amount of $390,692.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Tarrant. And I believe just looked at our acting city manager, all of these were for a term from April 1st, 2017 to March 31st, 2019. Is that correct on all of them, Mr. Roth?
Yes, that's correct.
So maybe we can just have that as append that to the end of each of them. Okay. Thanks very much, Councillor Tarrant. Any discussion or debate? Councillor Rice.
This is, I don't know if it's generic, it applies to all of them. Are any of these new providers, or have they had, I guess, experience, for lack of a better word, in providing this service?
Councillor Tarrant, do you want to answer that, or is that for Mr. Roth, do you think? Mr. Roth?
Your Worship, all the providers have provided services. There is changes in the specific contracts, so some providers have provided different services than what they're being contracted for going forward. So there is some changes, but they all do have experience in providing services within the community.
Thanks, Mr. Roth. Any discussion or debate on RFP 33-431-16? Seeing none, then I'll call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Tarrant.
Move that council award RFP.
You'll just have to, oh no, your mic's on, sorry. I can see the light.
Move that council award RFP 36-431-16 to HIV North Society, the amount of $420,000 from for a 2-year term from April 1st to March 31st, 2019.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Tarrant. Any discussion or debate on this motion? Just for clarity, these are provincial government funds, I believe, that are essentially flow through funding for the provision of housing and housing support services in the community. The province of Alberta gives them to the city of Grand Prairie, and the recommendations on the RFPs and the review, the development of the RFPs, the review of the RFPs are handled by the Community Advisory Board on Homelessness, which makes the recommendation to City Council. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Tarrant.
And I would move that council award RFP 35-431-16 to HIV North Society, the amount of $345,000 for a 2-year term from April 1st, 2017 to March 31st, 2019.
Thanks very much, Councillor Tarrant. Any discussion or debate on this motion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Please vote. I think I'm looking for one more, Council. Make sure your vote's stuck on the screen. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Tarrant, anything else you want to highlight from that set of committee minutes?
It was a pretty short meeting, so I think that was the main item of discussion.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Tarrant. That'll take us to the Community Safety Committee meeting from January 17th. Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I would move that council receive the minutes of the Community Safety Committee meeting held Tuesday, January 17th, 2017, as presented.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Thiessen. Any discussion or debate on that set of minutes? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Thiessen.
All right, got a few motions from the work that we did at committee there. The first being the utility bylaw, C-1139N, as it was presented by Aquaterra, who was speaking on behalf of this. This is the adjustment of the 2017-2018 rates per our franchise agreement. I think Baron Mance and the gentleman at Aquaterra highlighted them, but just in case you missed it, this will hold the line on our tipping fee at our landfill. It will increase 2.3% in water and 2.4% in wastewater. which is equal to 92 cents and $1.18 per residence in the next upcoming year. It also decreases to rates in curbside collection and recycling by 2% each. And all in all, it equals a total of $1.49 in 2017 and $2.15 to the overall charges on an average residence's bill in 2018. So with that being said, I would move that council give first reading to bylaw C-1139N, being an amendment to the utility bylaw.
Thanks very much, Councillor Thiessen. No discussion or debate on first reading. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Thiessen.
I would move that council give second reading to bylaw C-1139N.
Thanks, Councillor Thiessen. Open for discussion and debate. I see one council member in the queue. Councillor Rice.
I believe, if I just want to clarify, I believe that in this case, we can either vote to accept these increases, or we could pay the increases out of general revenue. So we have chosen by this route to make it a user pay, if you will.
That is correct, Councillor Rice. There's another method we could do it, because part of the agreement is we receive shareholder dividends, and so in 2017 these increases would equal about $3.8 million to the city of Grand Prairie, and in 2018 it would equal $3.9 million. So we could take it out of general revenue, or we could take it out of the revenue that we're gaining from
either way. It would result in a property tax increase.
You are correct.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Rice. Any other discussion or debate on second reading? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Thiessen.
I would move that council have third reading for bylaw C-1139N at this meeting.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Thiessen. As with that previous one, this is a motion that would enable us to have third and final reading at this council meeting. It must, again, pass unanimously. Is there any discussion or debate as to the merits of having third and final reading here tonight? Seeing no one in the queue, I will call for the vote. Thank you. That motion does not carry, and so we will have third and final reading of bylaw C-1139N at our next council meeting. That'll bring us to 9.3.2, Councillor Thiessen. Sorry, Councillor Rice.
So when were the proposed increases to go into effect?
I heard Director Galante, our Community Safety Director, say that it was March 1st.
Thank you.
So there will be time between our next council meeting and March 1st. Thanks very much. Councillor Thiessen.
All right, moving right along, we are talking about transfer of funds on 68th Avenue, the Twinning and Eastbound Bridge project. So to that degree, I would move that council approve the transfer of $141,000 from the Bear Creek Slope Rehabilitation Program to the 68th Avenue Twinning project. Further, that council approve the transfer of levy funding of $295,000 from the 68th Avenue and CKC East Traffic Signal Project to the 68th Avenue Twinning project. And further, that council approve the increase of $370,000 to the engineering services contract RFP-16-552-15 for a new total contract price of $1,416,387, excluding GST, previously awarded to Bearstone Associates Engineering for the 68th Avenue Twinning and Eastbound Bridge project. Just in speaking to the motion.
Well, and just to clarify, Councillor Thiessen, I think we're gonna. I'm looking over at our legislative services manager. She's suggesting that that's three motions as well. So we'll deal with the first on the list first.
He's further for no reason.
If you'd like to speak to the overall intent of the motions and how they fit together, that'd be fine. And then we'll, when we come to vote, we'll deal with the transfer first, and then the transfer of levy funding, and then finally the increase. So if you'd just like to speak to them, they all connect.
Yeah, so which is essentially what I was getting to by saying further all the time, but to further it on, the reason why this money is coming forward is just based on largely weather and costs that were unforeseen in the construction of the 68th project. That is unknown of utilities and old things that were underneath the ground, shallow utility movements, stuff like that. The increase of construction days, I believe, increased to 152 days total, and another 32 days for slope repair when dealing with the bridge. So these are just cost overrides. We were assured at the committee table that this still came in under budget. It's just a simple transfer to ensure that we could pay all the right people and get the job done.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Thiessen. Councillor Rice.
So, in order not to have to ask the question twice, this is kind of generic. How are the Bear Creek Slope Rehabilitation Project and the levy funding? How is this impacted by how are they impacted by this decision?
Director Galante, do you want to speak to that? While you're composing your thoughts, the one thing that I found odd, and because I asked a similar question at the committee, was that the transfer of funds from the Bear Creek Slope Rehabilitation Program to the Twinning Project is to order additional work so that we could redo some slope rehab in the area of the Twinning Project. So in that case, at least, it's money coming from a pot for slope rehab in order to do slope rehab as a part of this project. So that's the one portion. Director Galante, I don't know if you want to speak to the transfer of levy funding from the CKC traffic signal project.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That is correct. Basically, the first two recommendations are different allocations of funding, but they belong to the same overall project, to the 68th Avenue. So we had 141,000 allocated under Bear Creek Slope Rehabilitation Program, but it's part of the 68th Avenue tender. And the same for the levy from the Transportation System Levy Reserve, 285,000 for CKC East Traffic Signals Project. It's been allocated there, and now it's being transferred to the 68th Avenue project.
You know, the 370,000, is that new money, or is that those two mostly added together? Doesn't add up.
Director Galante.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The increase on the engineering services contract, 370,000 in total, is due to extra or additional days, site days. We encounter some geotechnical.
Yeah, no,
issues.
I'm not worried about that. Where is is that 370 new money, or is that 370? Do we get it from the 295 and the 141?
No, it's different, but it's part of the overall project. So there is no additional funding requested. It's part of the approved budget for the project.
All right, so it's money we had in our budget, but okay.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks very much, Director Galante. Thanks, Councillor Rice. So any other discussion or debate on the first of the motions related to this?
The transfer of $141,000 from Bear Creek Slope Rehab.
Okay. Any other discussion? Seeing none, then I'll call for the vote on the first motion. Please vote. Thank you. If that motion carries, Councillor Thiessen.
Moving along, I would move that Council approve the transfer of levy funding of $295,000 from the 68th Avenue and CKC East Traffic Signal Project to the 68th Avenue Twinning Project.
Thanks very much, Councillor Thiessen. Any discussion or debate on this motion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Thiessen.
And then finally, I would move that Council approve the increase of $370,000 to the engineering services contract RFP-16-552-15 for a new total contract price of $1,416,387 excluding GST, previously awarded to Bearstone Associates Engineering for the 68th Avenue Twinning and Eastbound Bridge project.
Thanks very much, Councillor Thiessen. And just for clarity, will any of these increased funds go to the actual physical contractor that's constructing the road?
I'm not 100% certain. I don't think so, though. But I'll look to Director Galante for clarity.
Sure. Director Galante, will any of these, this increase in the RFP that's been awarded to Bearstone Associates in Engineering, are any of these funds to the contractor that did the physical construction, or is this for construction supervision? So is it the contractor or the engineering firm that's getting the additional funds?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's the engineering company, Bearstone, because of the construction supervision contract.
Okay, and just one.
Not the physical construction of the road.
Okay, thanks very much. Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mayor Given. Just a quick question, Horacio. I see a lot of these with engineering. I guess I should have got an engineering degree and had a business of adding a contract because it seems to be a 30,000, 60,000, and it seems like a lot of this has been happening to the city. Like it's almost like a double whammy. Why is this extra money doing? Is it because delay in the construction, and the company that did the construction of the bridge will even come close to this money after the delay? So if they get charged 1,000, 1,500, do we know those numbers? Because I'm finding this is like a gravy train.
So that was a little bit, and there's a second portion of your question there, but yeah, there certainly is. But at least one portion is with respect to who this is being paid to. The construction has taken more site days than anticipated, and that's an issue certainly that would be between the city and the contractor who's doing the physical construction. But because there are more site days, we have a engineering contractor that we expect to be on site, and so we need to pay them. So that's why I asked that previous question. Your question about any penalties to the contractor for being over the site days, I think, is the second portion there, Councillor McLean. So, Director Galante, is there any update on that discussion between the city and the contractor, the construction contractor, on potential penalties around site days on this project?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At the end of the project this summer, we will review the total site days, and if the contractor went beyond the schedule, not with justified reasons, like weather, for example, the city is able to recover liquidated damages, not a penalty, but liquidated damages, in amount of $1,500 per day. So the final number will be calculated at the end of the construction period.
Okay, thanks, Director Galante. Councillor McLean.
Finish up. Thank you, Mayor Given. I think it's a nice, I know we can always add it where Barristroll is the engineering for the city for a year or two, but all these extras that they have after their contract is over to actually find out the real numbers at the end of the day, how much they are more and above than what happens, so that we know in the future. So, okay, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor McLean. Any other discussion or debate? Seeing no one in the queue, I'll call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Thiessen.
All right, moving on to item 9.3.3, the purchase of portable radios. I would move that council award the purchase of a minimum of 75 Motorola APX 6000 portable radios and accessories in the amount of $449,656.20, inclusive of GST, to Motorola Solutions Canada Incorporated. Just speaking to the motion, this is a request that was approved in our 2015 budget for the fire department to make the switch to better technology of radios from VHF to a UHF ultra-high frequency radios. One that they can go into places where they couldn't and still have clear reception when they're dealing with stuff. Logistics Officer Mike Anderson and Fire Chief Dan Lemieux presented to committee and said they went to the bowels of the Eastlink Center with the radios on. They said with the old radios they couldn't connect with each other. With the new ones they can. Another perk to these systems is that they also tie into the systems currently being used by the EMS, and in the future that will be used by the RCMP. So it gives all of our emergency responders an opportunity to communicate clearly with one another and know what's going on.
Okay, great. Thanks, Councillor Thiessen. Councillor Rice.
This is strange. We don't usually make it a motion inclusive of GST. I'm not quite sure why this one is different. It's a fair bit of money. The GST would be a fair bit of money. So, and we don't pay GST. So this is a strange motion. Also, I guess I wonder, generally, in cases like this, we tend to a local supplier in terms of warranty and repairs and that kind of thing, and yet they seem to have gone right to the manufacturer.
That is true. They did go right to the manufacturer, and they were allowed to bring in some of the models and test them out, and they got full warranty on the systems accordingly, as presented to committee. So, committee had no concerns about achieving the warranties.
Full warranty, but do they have to send them away, or can it be done local?
That would have been a good question to ask at the committee, but
Councillor Rice, I guess I'm not sure if this is exactly your answers your question. Administration undertook a process to pre-qualify certain vendors who had to meet a certain standard. This is one of two vendors that were pre-qualified that met the standard the fire department was looking for, and then based on that pre-qualification, they had that choice between administration chose between those two vendors. My understanding is that this number includes, I think, up to four, sorry, I shouldn't get that specific, but a number of spare radios. So if one was out of commission and had to be sent away, there are some spares as well.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Tarrant?
Mayor Gibbon, just curious if someone could answer why the minimum of 75.
Director Galante?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In total, initially, the fire department has 88 personnel. However, they did an assessment, and for the same price, some members, for example, as fire chief, deputies, member of administration, they will get an app. So they can still use a telephone with the app in an emergency to connect with the site. So they reduce the number of radios to 75. That would be the bare minimum they need. There is an option as well on the contract that they can purchase a few extra radios in the future if needed, but they wanted to test the app first as a saving measure.
Okay, thanks, Director Galante. Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mayor Gibbon. A couple questions, Horacio. So we got 3 fire halls. We know that in the city. On one shift, we might have 5 firemen. Like overall, we have 68 firemen. Am I correct? No firewomen, but 68 firemen. The total firemen are 68. You said 88, but actual firemen are all men, 68 of them, right?
Director Galante.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In total, there are 75 firefighters who would need a radio, and that's the absolute minimum in terms of life safety for the firefighters. That's the number that has been established by the fire department. That's the reason of 75.
Okay. Yep. Thank you very much, Mayor Gibbon. So where I was reaching is when they have their platoons go out per shift, they have maybe 5 or 6 on call. I don't know the numbers, but it's around there. We're looking at servicing every firefighter with one of these. I'm not going to the technology that's good in concrete or steel. I don't maybe went over that. I think that's great for safety. But we never heard of placing 10 or 12 per fire hall, and they use as they go. I don't know their operations, but to me it seems like a very... the question I asked at the committee was, in our operations we think this is good, but in Edmonton and Calgary they do it differently. And maybe if we had a 4th fire hall and this, and we can do this. We got almost $500,000, and I just find this like a Cadillac service. They're almost $6,000 per radio, and to say that you can't share it, I know there's many industries that work with many dangerous things that do have sharing in places where you have PowerPoint. So, yeah, they figure every fireman's got to have a $6,000 radio. For some reason, I don't know why they can't be charged in one area and you take them as you go. But just throwing it out there, I don't know why every fireman has to have a Pacific radio designated to them. That wasn't answered or maybe asked at the committee.
Well, it was asked at the committee, Councillor McLean, and certainly if any other committee members were there and wanted to help me out with that. But my recollection was that the fire chief answered that it's due to the way our department's structured. Larger departments, when they need to call in additional resources, would simply call them from another fire hall. And so there are quite often situations where our 3 fire halls will be engaged, and they will call up backup for each of the 3 halls from people who would be at home, essentially. And so they want to ensure that each of the members has a unit rather than a unit with them. And so because we're structured that way, if we had additional halls or additional members sort of sitting waiting to come in as backup, like Edmonton or Calgary might have, then that would be the approach. That was as much of the answer as I can sort of recollect. And I appreciate the fact also administration looked at who are the people that actually need to have these units, and they're the ones who are engaged in or are likely to be engaged in actual life-saving. It isn't administration or other positions as it might have been in the past. So that's as much of, I think, the answers I can recollect from the committee meeting. Councillor O'Toole?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mayor Given. You hit the nail on the head there. I know when the fire department did talk, they were trying to reduce the cost as much as they could. They did a lot of research into see who needed it and who didn't. And the way Mayor Given described a call-out situation is exactly how it was explained. And the individual could be on days off or are not working that particular day, and if they get called out, they can go right directly to the fire hall and understand what the progress is as they return to the fire hall.
Okay, thanks, Councillor O'Toole. Any other discussion or debate? I guess I would just, Director Galante, can you confirm for me that this number is within budget and that this amount, or this project rather, has been in the budget since 2015?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That is correct. The amount is within the approved budget and has been approved in 2015.
Okay. Thanks very much, Director Galante. I don't see anybody else in the queue. Is there any other discussion or debate? Councillor Rice.
Oh, I've been dying to ask Scott a question. How can that be? Because we don't generally carry specific project funding forward. I don't think. If we didn't use it in 2015?
Acting Corporate Services Director?
Alderman Weiss, I'm not quite sure what year it was budgeted for, though. It could have been in the budget for... Funds were probably in the budget for this year.
Okay, so we put it in for...
I don't believe it was a carryover.
15
Yeah.
for 27.
I don't believe it was a carryover.
Okay.
Additionally, I'm also hearing, I'll pass over to our Acting City Manager.
Your Worship, capital funding does roll over from one year to the next as based around the project, not around the budget year.
Thanks very much. Okay, then I don't see anybody else in the queue for discussion or debate on this motion. I'll call for the vote. Please vote. That motion carries. Councillor Thiessen, anything else you want to highlight from that set of minutes?
Yeah, I'd love to, actually. We received a report on a request from the Catholic School Board on putting up traffic signals on 108th Street and 132nd Avenue. Administration, after evaluating the project, said that it's in there, but not in the timeline that they want. And since we have bumped ahead the project significantly from our regular processes, they decided to do no work at this time as per the request, and we received that for information. Also, we received a report on taking an in-house permanent line marking program into the city. This is a reference, a referral from budget, and the committee took the report, which pretty much said that at this time it would probably be cheaper in the short and potentially long term to not undertake this ourselves, but they'll continue to look at the program, so we received that for information as well. And finally, the big news that you probably saw in the newspaper last week is we had a report or a presentation from a delegation of Alberta Transportation. Ryan Conowalik came to talk to us about some misconceptions on Highway 43X and the new bypass, and also received some questions on the twinning of Highway 40 and where we're going to see that down the road.
Thanks very much, Councillor Thiessen. That will take us to 9.4, the Corporate Services Committee meeting from January 17th. Councillor Radburn.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I will move council receive the minutes of the Corporate Services Committee meeting held January 17th, 2017 as presented.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Radburn. Any discussion or debate on that set of minutes? Anything we need to correct? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Radburn.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I would move council approve the memorandum of understanding between the City of Grand Prairie and Inclusion Alberta for involvement in the Rotary Employment Partnership. The goal of this partnership is to support paid, meaningful employment opportunities for people with developmental disabilities. We have been working on this for a bit. Director Roth actually chaired a task force that worked with all city departments to look at how we can strengthen, I guess, our this program and make it, I guess, more available and operationalize that. So it does. The memorandum of agreement outlines what the parties will be doing. Inclusion Alberta will help us with supporting those workers as they enter a particular job that they're starting. They will also provide a list of some candidates that we can choose from, and be an ongoing support to our staff as we learn to work with persons with disabilities in these jobs. So goal is to strive for a couple a year for the next 3 years. That's the goal of the task force, and this we feel will strengthen the focus and will provide the support necessary to accommodate these persons in the workforce with the City of Grande Prairie. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Radburn. Any discussion or debate on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. The motion carries. Councillor Radburn.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I would move that Council approve the following for the 2017 general election. And I'm going to read them I guess, for the interest of our audience, both here and afar. I move that Council approve the following for the 2017 general election. 1, the City of Grande Prairie enter into an agreement with the Grande Prairie Public School District and the Grande Prairie Catholic School District to conduct their school trustee election with costs to be shared 65% city, 25% public school district, and 10% separate school district, plus the separate school district will also pay actual ballot printing costs for some areas in the Catholic school district that is not within the city. And this has been a long-standing arrangement many years ago, and has been working well for each of our partners. Mainly because we have the expertise to run the election, and they really appreciate that help. No, I'm commenting on them as we go, just to clarify so you understand them better, Councillor Rice. Number 2, the returning officer be authorized to divide the city into voting subdivisions. So we had some discussion there. This just says that returning officer is authorized. We did have some discussion and provide a little bit of input in terms of some possible subdivision changes and discussion of how we're going to deal with the annexed area. So, but that was, I think they received that input. An advance vote to be held with the returning officer setting the dates and times. So we'll continuing with the advance voting. 4, the city provide for special ballots and provide for application for special ballot by one or more of the following methods: in writing, by telephone, by telecopier, fax, in person, and by email. And these are for people who cannot be in the city on election day. 5, the city provide for attendance of 2 deputies at the residence of an elector during the hours of an advance voting station is open to take the votes of an elector who, because of physical incapacity, is unable to attend a voting station or an advance voting station to vote. And finally, 6, the returning officer be authorized to designate the location of institutional voting stations. Again, we had a bit of a discussion and just talked about that work that the returning officer has to do. So that's the full motion. This gets us going with respect to planning for the October 2017 election. This is, we are moving forward earlier than we have in the past because there are a couple of other things that, in terms of an intent to become a candidate, that's a new provincial requirement. But also it provides us some chance to be even better prepared for Election Day. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Radburn. Councillor Rice.
When you're doing the institutional voting stations, do we generally set voting stations up in each senior's residence?
We have in the past.
Great, thank you.
Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mayor Given. Just a quick question to Terry. Terry, there is an amount that is if you're running an election, I believe it's $100. Can it go from $1 to $1,000? Like, is there a rule of thumb? You have to be minimum $100, or can it be $1? Like, if you're running in the municipal election, you have to give $100. You get so much back if you get so many votes. But is there a rule that where if you make it $1, so you break barriers and people that want to run? So if I had an amendment to this motion and wanted it to be $1, would that be breaking any rules of the Election Act?
Sure. So first thing, this motion doesn't speak to the requirements, minimum or otherwise, for people to submit a nomination to become a candidate. That would be under a different piece of city, under different city bylaw. I would suggest that if that's something that you wish to do, Councillor McLean, and certainly Council can do within some limits that Terry can speak to in a second, that would be more appropriate to ensure that you had the appropriate bylaw at hand, knew the appropriate section that you wish to amend, and bring that through to committee. Certainly it's something that is within Council's authority within some limits. And so, Terry, I don't know what the Local Authorities Election Act specifies as the minimum, or whether or not they specify any maximums. Is that something that you're aware of offhand tonight?
Mayor Given, that is not something that I'm aware of at the moment, but I could find this out and let you know.
Okay. Okay. That'll be fine. So, Councillor McLean, if that's an issue that you wish to address,
bring it to the right committee. Corporate.
Yeah, and just ensure too that you check on the city's website and find the appropriate bylaw and make sure that you can bring the specific section so it's easier to deal with for administration and for your council colleagues. Okay.
I think that was part of in the report too. It gives you some guidance too, in terms of our flexibility in that.
Thanks, Councillor Radburn. Any other discussion or debate? Seeing none, then I will call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Radburn, you had 9.4.3, and I'll recognize Councillor Rice. Councillor Rice?
Yeah, I'd like to declare a conflict, please, for 9.4.3. That's my employer.
Okay, thanks very much. So Councillor Rice will declare a conflict of interest with item 9.4.3. She will leave the council chambers. And she declared that conflict of interest because the Downtown Association is her employer. And Councillor Radburn.
Thank you, Mayor. And I would move council review and adopt the 2017 Business Revitalization Zone budget at the City Council meeting scheduled to be held in council chambers on Monday, March 6, 2017 at 6:30 p.m. as presented.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Radburn. Any discussion or debate on this motion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. And that motion carries. Councillor Radburn. Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I would also move that council direct administration to notify the businesses within the business revitalization zone of the above date by letter, accompanied by a copy of the proposed 2017 business revitalization zone budget.
Okay. Thanks very much, Councillor Radburn. Any discussion or debate on this motion? And seeing none, I'd note that this is housekeeping that the city is required under the Municipal Government Act to undertake annually. I don't see anybody else in the queue, so I'll call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries, so we will let Councillor Rice know that we've finished with that piece of business. We can ask her back into the council chamber. And we'll move on to our additional agenda item, item 9.5. Oh, sorry, Councillor Radburn.
I can just finish up.
Yeah, absolutely.
The one other agenda item was the Seniors Property Tax Reduction Program, and Council received a report for information and felt that we would not pursue any changes at this time. Thank you.
Any discussion or debate? Obviously nothing to vote on, nothing to vote on there, but I just want to see if there is any follow-up. And we'll move on to item 9.5, appointment of CAO. As has been in the media, City of Grand Prairie has been successful in our process of seeking new CAO, and we do, under legislation, have a requirement to make a formal motion making that appointment. And so I'd ask a council member to make a motion in the form that council appoint Mr. Robert Bob Nicolay as City Manager and Director of Emergency Management, effective February 1st, 2017. Could I have a motion for that? Councillor O'Toole.
I'll make that motion, Mayor Given.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor O'Toole. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. I don't believe we had any items of correspondence. Our delegation business, we had a couple of delegations. The first was Aqua Terra, and their business was dealt with, but there was another one. Councillor Rice?
I wouldn't, I don't know if I move that the suggestion put forward by Ms. Taylor be referred to the Community Safety Committee.
Or maybe just to refer to administration.
Refer to administration? Okay.
And that way, administration, as they look at the future phases of the downtown enhancement project, they could consider that. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. I think that handled all of our delegation business. There's the two tonight. We have no notices of motion this evening, and so we'll move to reports from council members who represent the city on external agencies, boards, and commissions. We'll start off with the Art Gallery of Grand Prairie Board, and nothing to report on that one from Councillor Clayton, so we'll move on to the Community Futures of Grand Prairie and Region Board, and Councillor O'Toole.
Thank you very much, Mayor Given. I attended the Community Futures meeting here late last week. It was a day-long meeting. We had a strategic planning, and one of the outcomes was that we are probably one of the busiest, and we are the busiest Community Futures in the province of Alberta and quite possibly Western Canada. We are moving into some new digs in 214 Place. That'll on the third floor. And that will be sometime in about, I think, the 20th of February. I'll get back to council with the exact dates. There was a question asked by Councillor Logan last meeting when I gave my report about how many loans were given out in the Grand Prairie area. Out of 24 particular loans, the majority were in Grand Prairie. There were some in the outlying areas, but the majority were in Grand Prairie. And with the new digs that we were getting, the Community Futures has always been a place where business could get mentoring and support and deal with research and stuff like that. And with the new opportunities that we're going to have in 214, the new space, we'll be able to explore more opportunities and enhance those particular areas as well with new growth amongst the Community Futures. So that'll be my report for today.
Thanks very much, Councillor O'Toole. Grand Prairie Public Library Board, Councillor Radburn.
Thank you, Mayor Given. Just a quick update on our January 10th board meeting. We welcome new board members Greg Serbach and Cheryl Weaver. Auditors will begin their work January 23rd with approval by the board on March 14th. The library director evaluation is in process and will be completed by the end of January. Tammy Brown has volunteered to be our Peace Library rep. And we had a year in review presentation, which was very useful to all of us, actually, but particularly our two new board members. Thank you, Mayor Given.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Radburn. And then I think finally we have Water North Coalition, Councillor Thiessen.
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor Given. On January 19th of last week, the Water North Coalition met in Valley View to, if you're not familiar with the Water North Coalition in the general public, is to deal with having access to water and wastewater treatment facilities in northern, remote, rural areas of Alberta. So to that extent, we did discuss a few things. We went over a review of our I guess, ongoing items list, and old business, new business. And new business coming in was a couple requests to present from 2 technology companies that were wanting to present their wares on portable, potable water stations. It's kind of a mouthful. Basically, we were under the understanding too that every time we get someone to present, essentially they're presenting their wares. Now these are coming at no cost to the organization. Sometimes other ones have cost to the organization, but we said, yeah, come on in and present. But then that also led to the discussion around potential membership fees in order to bring in speakers or project technologists that might be able to help alleviate the concerns around the table about how they're going to get water and wastewater treatment facilities cheaply to these northern remote rural areas. To that degree, most members were frowned upon the idea of a membership fee, and the discussion went instead towards since we've already tapped a lot of provincial funding, where we could get federal funding. And there was a request made by the chair that if anyone knows the minister who just happened to be going through Grand Prairie that day, that maybe they might have some information to give us. And to which I was tasked with that job and brought it forward to Minister Sohi, since that's part of his purview as the Minister of Infrastructure of the federal government of Canada. He's receptive to that, and I'm sure they're connecting as we speak. We also received presentations, one from the University of Alberta, Dr. Daniel Alessi. He's assistant professor and Encana chair in water resource science on the toxicology concerns of hydraulic fracturing and how that can affect water systems throughout the province. Basically, he said we've done lots of testing and some of this can be toxic, but there's no evidence as of yet that it can contaminate the groundwater supplies or aquifers. Since the well sites are borne so low down in the ground, but they're still awaiting toxicology results coming back to really state how toxic the chemicals might be. And finally, we received a presentation from the Mighty Peace Watershed Alliance, another organization committee that I sit on, discussing our integrated watershed management plan on the topic of water availability and quality away from the main stem. And that concluded our meeting. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thanks very much, Councillor Thiessen. I think unless there were any other external agency reports that I missed, then we'll start with Councilmember Roundtable, and we'll start with Councillor Radburn.
Thank you, McGibbon. I'll just highlight one event and let others choose other events to report on. I attended both the afternoon and evening sessions of the Alberta Provincial Boxing Championships. This is of note because it was hosted in the field house at the Eastlink Center. It served to be an excellent venue for this type of event, and it was very well attended. And so I would like to commend our Eastlink staff, but also the Champion Gym were our hosts, and the many sponsors and volunteers that helped with that. So well done, community. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Radburn. Councillor O'Toole.
Thank you very much, Mayor Given. I had the opportunity this last Saturday to go to the Douglas J. Cardinal Performing Arts Center at the GPRC. And I had an opportunity to watch the City Ballet. Now, the little history here, the Academy program, which is part of the Grand Prairie Public School District, is a dance, and they learn hockey, or there's divisions where there's dance and hockey and soccer and golf, where athletes can go and increase their knowledge and enhance their sport. And they approached, the Academy approached the POE earlier last year to ask for some funding to do some instructional from professional-based ballet company. And so Saturday they had the instructions for the students, and on Saturday night they had a performance. And I've never been to a ballet before. I'm pretty open-minded when it comes to this sort of stuff, and I can honestly tell you that I thoroughly enjoyed myself. The attendance was, I'm going to say, sold out, and the performances were absolutely stunning. So with that, we do have the arts here in Grand Prairie and the facility where this was presented. The sound was beautiful, the lighting was beautiful, and the location was excellent. So thank you.
Thanks, Councillor O'Toole. Councillor Rice. Nothing to report. Thanks, Councillor Rice. Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you very much, Mayor Given. Just two things to report. I'd just like to thank the City 99th crew and crime prevention for helping put together a Lunch and Learn series on January 10th. The subject of discussion was missing and murdered Aboriginal women and what we can do to create solutions to this issue and to promote really an equal society for all people, and to ensure that this doesn't happen, that justice can be served, and that missing and murdered Indigenous women don't have to go missing. We're also educated about the Hug a Sister program, which is a local program that seeks to educate and advocate for those who have gone missing in the past of the Indigenous population. Finally, on the 19th, last week, we were privileged enough to get to see the Minister of Infrastructure for the federal government of Canada, Amarjeet Sohi, came here on a Canada 150 grants tour and graced the Peace Region with about $400,000 in funding for Canada 150 grants. After that, we were able to sit down and have discussions with him on our infrastructure needs and wants, and I'm sure others will talk about that. But then we followed that up with a bus tour. And if you're not aware, Amarjeet, prior to being a city councillor in the city of Edmonton and a federal minister of infrastructure, was also a bus driver. So we took him on the tour of our bus facilities, where our transit manager, Jason Henry, and his technology geek guru, I think is how he pronounced it, was Eric. They talked about all the new innovations that we've implemented in our transit program through the funding that we received through the federal and provincial government. Innovations such as the Where's My Ride app that you can go and find out through Bluetooth tracking where our buses are, their route planning, destination trackers, and next stop displays for the visual and hearing impaired persons, as well as smart card technologies. Amarjeet was especially interested in our purchase of electric buses and wanted to know when we were going to get them online. And then we took him back to the station, even though it's pretty much just four walls and concrete and tin. He was also very impressed with that. So good job to our administration for putting on a good show for Amarjeet. I know he left impressed, or he is a really good actor, but he seemed really genuine in that, and that's all I have to report.
Thanks, Councillor Thiessen. Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I got three things to report. One, before Christmas, of course, we went to all kinds of events with councillors at different times. A report on Charlie Kramer died, a resident of the city of Grand Prairie for many, many years. I had the privilege to work with him at Weyerhaeuser, and not only was he big in Rotary and Special Olympics, he had a leadership where it was quiet, and very smart individual. We needed something to get fixed while you're running it. He knew how to do it better than anybody. And just to speak to his quiet leadership in our community, he was a husband. He leaves behind his wife and two children. And we were in the People's Church, and I think there's 750 seats in there. I don't think one was empty. So a lot of people are going to miss him in our community. Another individual I want to talk about is Dennis Hubert, which just recently from Home Hardware, and I didn't realize that he was that old, but 50 years service to one company. That building before 26 years ago was Beaver Lumber, and it got bought up by Home Hardware, but he's been there for 50 years. He works 2 days a week now. I believe something like that in the community we should be looking at to recognize them, because 50 years, you don't see too many 50-year services of one company. So thank you, Dennis, for your community. And the last one to speak to, which Councillor Thiessen brought up, was the meeting with the Federal Minister, Amarjeet Sohi. I was very honored and privileged to have him come to our city. And as a councillor for the last 6 years, we haven't seen one federal minister come to City Hall. Maybe they passed through and we didn't know about, but I was very honored to have him come here. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor McLean. Councillor Logan.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Logan. Councillor Clayton.
Thank you, Mayor Given. Just two things I wanted to mention that haven't already been mentioned. I brought greetings on behalf of the city as a deputy mayor to the ribbon cutting ceremony at the newly expanded Happy Trails RV. That if you haven't had a chance to check out the facility, it's 2 floors of RVs. It's 72,000 square feet. It's as big as a football field inside. and it has a basement with 16-foot ceilings. It has another floor of RVs, so it's quite an impressive building, and they had a great celebration event that evening. As well, on January 22nd, I guess yesterday, I was invited to be a judge at the 3D Startup, which was put on by the Grand Prairie Regional Innovation Network. I was one of 4 judges in a panel. We had 5 presentations from different groups representing everything from retail businesses to technical products. They had 3 days to build this and make the presentation, and then they presented. So it was very well received, and from what I hear, they're already working on the next one. So congratulations to Bob Paul and his group that put that together. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Councillor Clayton. Councillor Tarrant.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I'll just mention the event that was mentioned a few times now was the visit of Minister Sohi. It was good to have good dialogue with him, to hear, we don't often get to hear some of the federal initiatives affecting communities, so it was good to have that one-on-one. I will say it was a little disappointing getting the grant funding and finding out it was such a small amount, in comparison to some of the other communities in the region, and in comparison to the overall pot. I think we had applied for this Canada 150 grant. We were really hopeful we would have a much more significant amount, and that there would be a sort of a legacy project that would be invested within the city. So that was a bit of a disappointment, but I just hope that maybe it was a bit of seed funding and the bigger payouts coming at a later date. But in all, it's any money is welcome, and it was definitely good to have the visit.
Thanks very much, Councillor Tarrant. So in addition to some of the events I did attend that were previously mentioned, I also was in Edmonton on Wednesday the 18th to attend a regular Board of Directors meeting for the Alert organization. It was also a retirement celebration for the Alert CEO, and it was interesting. Marianne Ryan, the Deputy Commissioner for the RCMP and K Division, who council members will know, was there as well. She noted that she was classmates, so 2 female RCMP officers who were classmates in depot together, both finishing their careers here this year and in significant leadership positions, and so that was great to see and nice to see that acknowledged. I was also in Edmonton on the 19th for an AUMA Municipal Governance Committee meeting. The Municipal Governance Committee continues to work through the MGA, the amendments to the MGA. As Council may or may not be aware, the government is also proposing to make some additional amendments to the MGA this spring, in the spring session. The additional amendments look to be ones that are improvements to some of the concepts that the government had included in the first round of amendments, as well as some other items which appear to be priorities of this government that weren't previously discussed. And so the AUMA committee is working through those and giving advice to the AUMA board on what the organization's position should be. So it looks like there's still opportunity to influence the final shape and outcome of the Municipal Government Act in some specific parts. I flew home that day to make it here in time, and thanks very much to Councillor Clayton, who is willing and ready, if needed, to step up and provide some comments as Deputy Mayor, and the other council members who all made certain to attend. As Councillor McLean suggested before, it isn't often or in my memory on council that we've had a federal minister here in council chambers, and so certainly appreciated that opportunity and the fact that council and administration made themselves available to be here to welcome him. And with that, I think we'll call our council meeting adjourned.